easier for her to capture everything accurately, okay? The other reminder is that if you're wishing to speak during the public testimony section of our hearing, you need to please clearly state your name and address for the record and spell your last name for us, please, so we can make sure, again, that we get it all accurate and correct into the record. So just, I'll remind you this again as we get into our hearings tonight. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. This is our time to get started. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Village of Villa Park Planning and Zoning Commission. We'll take roll call. Commissioner Hassler.
Here.
Bello.
Here.
Orlowski.
Here.
Romano.
Here.
Jarrett.
Here.
And we have a quorum. We are expecting one more member here yet this evening, and we will note that in the record accordingly when he arrives. The first agenda item is approval of minutes for June 15th, 2017. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Any second on that motion, please?
Second the motion.
Second. Any questions or comments? We're going to vote by roll call. Commissioner Hassler.
I'm sorry.
Minutes of the meeting.
Minutes of the meeting.
Oh, yes.
Bello.
Yes.
Orlowski.
Yes.
Jarrett.
Yes.
And I too vote yes. I didn't ask you, Mr. Romano, because you weren't here last meeting. And by the way, this is Mr. Romano's first Plan Commission hearing, joining our commission here this evening, so we want to welcome him and thank him for his participation. So we're going to move into public hearings. The first public hearing is petition PZ 170015, special use for a residential planned unit development at 219 South Monterey Avenue. Petitioner is Jamshid Jahedi. Close enough? Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you. So, again, you may stand up. Anyone else with you wishing to present, speak tonight, please all stand up at the same time, get sworn in. Then as each one of you approaches the microphone, please state your name, your address, and please spell your name for us as well. So first, be sworn in. So anyone that you think is even going to speak on behalf of the petition, go ahead and swear them in right now. Thank you. So you may come to the microphone, and then again, please state your name and address for the record, then you may begin.
Doesn't work, huh? Low.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on or not. Just go ahead and project for us, please.
Yes. My name is Jamshid Jahedi. I'm an architect, and I'm also a developer in this case on the property at 219 Monterey Avenue. And my address is 105 Ogden Avenue, Clarendon Hills, Illinois, 60514. I have prepared a PowerPoint for tonight with a million of data in there that I wanted to share with you. Unfortunately, for some reason, we couldn't get the system to work. So it makes my life miserable in front of you guys, because I really wanted to relay to you whatever we are adding to the community in that area, but it makes it very difficult for me. I do my best. A couple of things I'm planning to do. This is my laptop, which cannot be connected, of course. This is the laptop of the city, which doesn't act tonight. It doesn't want to act. And I have an iPad, which I read from. In some cases, I may have to walk around and show in my iPad some of the information that I need to relay with you, so that you get an idea of what's going on. And this holds also for the board members or planning commission members at the same time. again, I read from this one and I try to verbally say as much as I can. This property is located in a block just maybe 2 blocks south of St. Charles Road and maybe 1 block west of Kingery Drive. It's bordered between Monterey, Park Avenue, and the North Riverside. And we are 1 lot south of the Park Avenue. It is a lot which normally could be 3 houses, 3 zoning houses in there. And in this particular case, extraordinarily long. It's longer than all the lots in that area. So in such that we can break it to 5 or 6 lots, which are all zoning lots and can be built if we do that. In this case, of course, we are using only 5 lots, and then the 6th lot is being used as a cul-de-sac and the open space in order to give it some variety. The lot is located almost half a block west of the floodline of the Villa Park, which is tributary to Salt Creek. Probably many of you guys know about that. I had some picture to show that here from the DuPage County regulatory map, which it's not that important at this time, but it's not in the floodplain. The North Riverside, however, and even the west edge of the North Riverside street is in the floodplain, and I heard that sometimes there are some problems with the flooding in that area. The slope of this whole area is from the Monterey Avenue toward the Riverside and toward the Park Avenue. So the highest point of this property is in the southwest of this property, which is on the Monterey Drive, south of this property, and then it slopes down toward the northeast corner of the block, which is the intersection of Park Avenue and Riverside Avenue. The slope is very shallow. It's about 1%. 1% is the minimum slope is required for actually for a parking lot when it is paved. If it is not paved, we usually require 2% of a slope in order for the water to drain in the grassy area, which we don't have it. Therefore, this area in the after the rain, after a heavy rain, is flooded because it is flat. Nothing wrong with that, it is flat. And the water, any runoff which is created in this area, and I'm talking mostly about the upper half of the block between these streets, are going toward the northeast in the cross section of Park and Riverside. And nothing can be done about it, of course, at this time. I understand that the city has been working on that area. They have added some drainage in the Riverside, and they are doing something in the future, early future in the Monterey and the Park Avenue as well. But at this time, this is the situation. What we are doing here, we are trying to do a few things, and which I think all of them are good for the community. When we come, I'm an architect myself, I designed it myself, and when I came with this idea, I was excited, and I put it in front of my office. They look at it, they were so excited, they said, oh, that looks nice. And then I said, okay, we are prejudiced about that. We took it to the village, we put it in front of the community development members. They liked it. I put it in front of the building on the other side, Public Works people, which are the engineers. They were excited about that. And I actually also shared it in one public hearing with the board here, with the planning commission here, and they were kind of open to see what can be done about this. What we are doing here, this is about 1 acre of land. If we take the upper half or the north half of that block, which is surrounded by Monterey Park and Riverside, and south of that, I forgot the name of the street, it's too far away. But in this part, it's about maybe 3 acres. I just estimated, guess it. About 3 or 4 acres of land in this half. This one is about 1 acre of that. 25% of that area is still right now draining toward the Park Avenue, the corner of Park Avenue and Riverside. What we are trying to do, we are trying to separate this lot from the rest of the community, separate the runoff. So stop the runoff water from going to that area by diverting the water back into the center of the property, which is the cul-de-sac in the middle, that circular area in the middle, along with the street that you see it in that colorful drawing, the second from the left. That area, which looks like a pink color, this is a storage area. We are digging the ground down about 3 feet, 2 to 3 feet, I would say, down, and we fill it with the rocks, and then structurally fill it so that the final work on the top, the street, has the capacity for taking the load of the fire department trucks and every other things, just like any other street. But underneath, in between the rocks, we are going to store certain amount of water, which otherwise would have diverted to the northeast corner of that block. This way, and of course, when the water goes to that area, we release it to the sewer line in a controlled manner. It means that when the rain comes for 24 hours, the first couple of hours may not create any accumulation. After that, the water just accumulating in that area until it gets full, and then start overflowing somewhere. This, while it is getting full, at the same time the water is going out through the drain, to the drain, in a controlled manner, because we don't want to overload the drain of the city either. So it has to be controlled that way. Once it went to some area which is to some point that this detention pond, we call it, is full, then it starts overflowing. And it will overflow to the drainage system of the Monterey, which goes to the drainage system of the park in a safe manner, and would go out of the area. So the idea is to just reduce, and this is not only the idea that we do it just for the sake of doing it. No, this is the requirement of the DuPage County, that if you want to do a subdivision, you have to contain the water and the runoff which is produced within that subdivision, and release it to in a safe manner to the system that the village or city has. So we are following the code in order to do that, but at the same time, we are helping the drainage system, or the poor drainage system in the area, by creating or eliminating, first of all, 25%, 1 acre out of 4 acre of this runoff, which goes toward the park and Riverside, and divert it somewhere else. So this is, I think I do not want to explain more than that, unless there is a question that I can open it up. But this is how it works. I have some pictures. It looks like we can continue unless there's a question. I can show the pictures here and the maps that I have. This is one point for the drainage that I think it is a plus to the whole system. The other thing is that just the type of the design, well, let's also go to the density of the neighborhood. This property is about 1 acre. It's about 325 long and about 150 wide. If you go look at the north side of this property, in the north line, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half almost, 6 lots, 6 houses along the, which is bordered with this north border of this property. 6 lots, and then the width is also about 100 feet. So that is another acre of the land between this property and the Park Avenue, which is 1 acre land, which contains 5.5 houses or 6 houses in there. We are adding to the same amount of the land in that area 5 houses, which is compatible or very normal for the density of the neighborhood that we are in. So we are not building a huge number of houses in there, which makes a crowded area or take away a lot of green area. We are still within the norms of the R2 zoning. We also are within the standards of all the setbacks. None of the areas, none of the houses which is built here is closer than any other house that is in the neighborhood to each other. The setbacks, 6-foot side yards, 40-foot backyard, 30-foot front yard, all of them are preserved in this property as well, or in this development. The size of the houses are also around, we are proposing something between 2,000 and 2,500. It is in the range of the neighborhood. It is nothing spectacular, which is eyesore in a high-end way to the neighborhood, and it is certainly not lower end at all, because it is an upgrade, in our opinion, to the neighborhood. It is, at the end of the day, it would look like not a gated community, but it's a cul-de-sac, closed community with 5 houses. All of them are served within the circle of the cul-de-sac. All the parking lot, ugly garage areas are within the cul-de-sac, and when it comes out only in one access way to the Monterey, which is right now, it is one access also in that house, and not more. So it will be preserved, that area, the front of the Monterey, and it is a little setback, so it looks something a little further inside and close by itself. The houses architecturally is going to be designed. I think you have some of the photos over here that it shows what the idea is. You're welcome to, if you want, I can even turn it around if you want to show it. And the way that they are designed, they are mostly brick in the front, more than only a face. It's more than a face. And then it in the back is still the same shape. They have it here. You just need to show it to this side. If you walk around a little bit so that they see it, that's the. So this is the architectural style. All of the houses will be built in the same manner, so it's not like a hodgepodge of different designs. All of them will be architecturally compatible and in the same style. The cost of the houses, we did some market study. It is going to be in the higher end of the Villa Park houses, and we don't want to go higher than what the Villa Park can offer, because it does not make sense.
Can you put a number on that, please?
A number is around, I would say, between 450 and 500. It's closer to 500, I would say, at this time. We are trying to bring the cost down if possible, but the cost of building this cul-de-sac and the detention pond and bringing the sewer and water as a utility inside the property, bringing the light poles like street lights, bringing the fire hydrant, all of this is the cost which adds to the cost of the houses that will eventually sell around the area that I'm mentioning. The landscaping, of course, what you see here on the picture, on the second board picture, is the minimum landscaping needed just to pass the code, you want to call it, but certainly we will leave it to every owner to add certain landscaping to the area. We suggested certain, like adding a playground, although it may not make a lot of sense, but for 5 houses to have a park in that area. But it really depends on the owners who come in and how they want to use it. We envision this to be 5 lots, independent lots, without any what they call it owner association fees or anything. So it's owner owned and operated, and if they decided to do something with that, every house is a better way of presenting a house rather than starting put makeup all over the places and take it out of hand of the owners. So that's also the idea that we want to preserve. The material is mostly brick and the siding. That's what it is suggested at this time, and it is very much compatible with the area. Within that range, we can maybe see what the planning commission ideas are, or if anything can be added or subtracted. We are always open to the community and also to the planning commission to listen and see what is feasible within the range of this area that can be done to enhance the area better. Certainly, it's a value added to the surrounding properties, and I have a passion on just getting it done in the way that I have done all my other projects. With this, I think I'm kind of complete. Unless there is any question, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's a, I don't know if you all got the agenda when we came in. Let me just go through the agenda of how this works. So the petitioner presents. There's then staff input. So Director of Community Development will come up and give staff's input from the various departments, specifically the Planning Department. We'll then open up for a public participation and questions. At that time, that's your opportunity to ask questions, make comments about all the information that you've heard so far. And we'll conduct that in a way that you'll come up, and as I stated before, you'll have to state your name and address for the record. We'll have you all sworn in at one time when we get to that point, or everyone that wants to speak. And then we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Now, usually when we have a group this large, we ask that you respect your neighbors and limit your comments to 2-3 minutes at most. We probably won't start off timing you because we'll be on the honor system, but if we find that it's dragging on, we'll start doing that. Because again, we want to have an opportunity for everybody to be heard. But we're not there yet. We've got to do
I know you mentioned this in another recent hearing, but if you have something for or against the project that the person before you just said, it's okay to come up and say that you agree with them, but you don't necessarily need to reiterate point by point, because there may be a lot of people that want to speak, and everybody gets a chance to get their voice heard.
Yep. Great. Yes, thank you. So we're on to the second agenda item for this hearing, which is now staff input. So Director Grill's going to come up and give you the staff report in regards to this petition.
Yes, before you tonight, you have a residential planned unit development proposal on a property on the east side of Monterey, south of Park. It is zoned R2. R2 allows lots of 7,500 square feet, 50 feet in width. If you took the amount of acreage in this PUD and divided it out, you could actually get a little over 6 lots, just by a lot area standpoint. Obviously, you still have to meet other bulk regulations, and the need for a road certainly cuts into that, as it has in this particular project. The
Sorry,
5 lots.
what's a bulk regulation? Give us an example of what that is.
Bulk regulation is the either the lot width, the lot depth, the area, and the setbacks that the zoning prescribes for each zoning lot.
Thank you.
This particular development, only 2 of the lots meet the lot area requirement. The other 3 are less than 7,500 square feet in size. They all do meet front yard setbacks. They all do meet side yard setbacks. Obviously, the 2 homes that front on Monterey do not meet rear yard setbacks. But the PUD allows a certain amount of flexibility. So with that, I thought it necessary to provide you with a quick lesson in the PUDs. Just take one and pass it down, Mike. The purpose of a PUD, and I'm going to read this, but it's in what I'm handing out to you. It's the intent of the Planned Unit Development Ordinance to prevent greater flexibility for the purpose of securing better site planning than would be possible through a strict application of the zoning ordinance and the subdivision regulation ordinance, while safeguarding the present or future use and development of surrounding areas, specifically to provide for the following. 1, an opportunity for new and creative approaches to the living environment and for ingenuity, imagination, and design efforts on part of the builders, architects, site planners, and developers. 2, to provide for an economic and efficient use of land. 3, permanent provision of common open space and recreation areas and facilities. 4, preservation of natural features, thus enhancing the appearance of the neighborhood and serving a conservational purpose. 5, an improved level of amenities. And 6, maximum choice in the types of environment and housing available. So that's the intent of the PUD. That's the type of development that we want encouraged if we're going to go beyond the strict application of the zoning ordinance. In this particular instance, staff feels that the developer has not met that intent. Certainly, he was before us last month with a concept, and from a conceptual level, staff does like this from a concept standpoint. You know, there's no more than a 3-home width on the frontage along Monterey. That's what you could do out of the straight zoning ordinance. Because you have an incredibly deep lot, that allows the addition of homes behind the frontage and still meet most of the bulk regulations of the R2 zoning district. But in the other areas that the PUD is meant to encourage, I think the developer falls short. You know, the first item, intent, is to provide for new and creative approaches and for ingenuity and imagination. Staff doesn't believe that there's a lot of ingenuity or imagination in the way this particular development has been laid out. 2, an economic and efficient use of land. Perhaps, but the developer hasn't provided any specific numbers to highlight that. 3, permanent provision of common open space and recreation areas and facilities. I didn't see any in this proposal. 4, preservation of natural features, thus enhancing the appearance of the neighborhood and serving a conservational purpose. Although the developer didn't have many opportunities to elaborate on that, he certainly hasn't done anything to provide any conservation of the area. 5 was an improved level of amenities. I don't see any amenities within this proposal that we wouldn't get out of just the straight subdivision of the property. And then the last one is a maximum choice in the types of environment and housing available. It's pretty much the same, it's a single-family home. It's what exists all up and down Monterey Avenue. So staff felt it important to highlight that particular intent portion of the PUD ordinance, so as we consider this, we know what a PUD, what the intent behind the PUD ordinance was and what it's for. In moving through the comments, you'll notice that in the internal staff review that there was nothing there from the Public Works Department. And I just happen to have with me tonight the comments of the village's consultant on the engineering of this development. And I'm going to read it also so it goes into the record. This is from Chris Hanchett from V3. It says, based on the review of the preliminary plans, I have the following questions and comments that should be addressed heading into final engineering. Please confirm the existing depressional storage volume within the site and demonstrate that the proposed improvements will not negatively impact the existing ponding on the adjacent properties. The development is cutting off a majority of the flow to the northeast, but it still should be demonstrated that the low-lying areas north of the subdivision are not being impacted. More detailed than the county topo will be required, either topographic survey of the Village of Villa Park, LIDAR, for the area work. The parcels immediately west receive very little direct runoff from the subject property because it appears that they're sloping back to the depressional areas. The applicant again would need to show that these homes are not being negatively impacted by the fill placed on the site and having a slope drain towards their property. They may need to pick up the drainage within a few yard drains at the bottom of the slope. Is the PCBMP, post-construction best management practice volume, also being provided within a permeable paver system? It appears that they will in fact have more than the 2,500 square feet of net new impervious area. It doesn't appear that the site will need detention because the net new impervious will be less than the 25,000 square feet that is required. That's the comment from the village's consulting engineer on the preliminary engineering that was submitted with this. Obviously, we're only before you, the petitioner is only before you tonight with a preliminary PUD, and quite often a lot of this does get pushed off to final engineering. But we may want to consider giving the drainage issues that do exist in this neighborhood, that maybe we get a little bit more information prior to moving this along. And it was the village engineer's advice that we may want to consider having the petitioner provide a little bit more towards final engineering before we move this along. So I guess to sum up, while staff does not have a problem with the concept of a 5-lot or 5-unit development on this particular piece of property on Monterey, staff feels that there's not enough creativity, there's not enough uniqueness to this. I did have a conversation with the petitioner who indicated that there's an existing chain link fence that surrounds the property and that he would keep that as part of this development. I think that's woefully inadequate for what we're trying to achieve here. Again, the PUD is intended to, get more out of a development than what you could get out of a straight subdivision. Staff doesn't feel like we're getting anything out of this particular development, and certainly would, I would think we'd get just as much out of a 3-lot straight subdivision than we'd be getting out of this. So, if the Planning and Zoning Commission were wishing to make particular approvals on this and send it along to the village board, I would have some additional commentary to help you along with that particular issue. With that, I will turn it back over to the commission.
Thank you. Okay, that was our staff input. We're going to move into public participation and questions. So the first step here is for anyone that wishes to speak tonight to please stand up and be sworn in. So if you even have an inkling in your mind that you may want to speak, go ahead and get sworn in, because then otherwise we're going to have to swear you in as you come up to the podium. So it doesn't mean you have to speak if you get sworn in. So okay? All right. Please proceed.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, so then one at a time, come up to the podium here. And again, state your name, your address for the record, and please spell your last name. The court reporter admonished me tonight because I don't remind people of that enough. So please do that. And whoever wants to kick it off, please go ahead. Sir.
John Geatros, Geatros. I live at 526 East Park, and my concern is the drainage. You know, we have a lot of flooding in Villa Park, and we voted for some tax increases, sales tax increases to get the flooding away. But I don't understand this, the permeable, I understand the drainage system they're talking about with the permeable paver system. But one of the questions I have is the sewer connection or the drainage connection to that to the line in the Monterey, is that a combined sewer system right now? Is that what they're tying into? Because that's what we're trying to get away from right at this point. And the other thing is I think when he mentioned about the permeable paver system, is that you have enough storage, seems like they have enough storage capacity underneath the cul-de-sac, but the paver, and let me know if this is incorrect, but the pavers won't allow that drainage. It's not like grass where it's going right through right away. It's going to sit on the pavers and not drain properly. Am I looking at that wrong, or?
Yeah, so why don't we, by hands, everyone that's concerned about drainage and wants more information on drainage, maybe raise your hand. Okay, I'll call that everybody. So let me start by saying this so that you understand what the Planning Commission's role is with this. As Director Grill mentioned, and he read an internal communication between the petitioner's engineer and our village engineers, and actually we have a consulting engineering firm as well. They've submitted preliminary drawings, and they put forth a concept of how they're going to meet, as the petitioner said, DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance and Village of Villa Park Stormwater Ordinance. The general principle here is they can't let anything run off their site. They have to contain it all and then slowly release it into the storm sewer system. They also can't make any neighboring property's drainage situation worse. So in other words, if your property is draining towards this piece of property, that has to be maintained. So they have to then receive that water and take care of that as well. That will be determined final engineering and design for that is going to be a long process. And we won't, as a plan commission, be able to address that. We will have conditions when it goes, we make a recommendation up to the village board one way or the other that get taken care of, and they won't get a building permit even if they get village board permission until all the engineers are satisfied that they're going to meet those general principles, okay? The actual engineering, though, is calculations and multiple solutions and everyone vetting to make sure it's the best solution for this particular property. So that's kind of the whole process. And I think if you want to come up and say, yeah, I'm concerned about drainage, that's enough, just so it emphasizes to the board, to staff, to everyone else, it's a big concern, and it's one of your big concerns with this development. I just wanted to give you that overview because we're not going to be able to sit here, or the petitioner or village staff, answer really super specific questions about the system right now because it's just not designed. He presented a concept to store underneath using a pervious paver system underneath the cul-de-sac. He's also identified a couple areas on the site as well that he would store water. So in concept, it looks like they're going to have volume sufficient, but if that sufficient's not enough, there's all kinds of other systems that can be employed in terms of concrete tubes that get stored underground. There's lots of ways. In terms of what, is it a combined sewer or not that they would be connecting into? Director Grill, do you know the answer to that question?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I would have to refer to the Public Works Department.
But again, okay, Public Works, though, will inform how that's going to work. And if there would have to be an improvement in order to take the volume of water to the system in the street, this developer would have to pay for that improvement, as determined again by engineers, not by planning and zoning or staff. Is that clear to everybody? I just want to make sure you know what we can and can't. You know, we want to hear the comments that we're concerned about drainage with this development, and we want to make sure that is reflected in the record, goes up to Village Board so that they can acknowledge it and ask the appropriate questions, but we can't solve it all tonight, okay? All right, so if that kind of general, again, I'm not telling you don't say that you're concerned with the drainage. Please do, but you don't need to elaborate a lot other than say, well, maybe my yard drains that direction, I know, and I don't want it to get worse. That's fine. Okay? All right, well, let's continue on then.
Hi, good evening. My name is Paulina Jimenez. I live in 445 South Monterey. Yes, I'm concerned about drainage, but I'll bring other points. One of the things that I'm really impressed about that the village did a couple years back, it was a comprehensive plan. I want to bring this up because I read it again, and I use this all the time as my reference. This is a beautiful plan, by the way. I kudos to the village for doing this. And this is our map, the direction that we're going, the direction in our future. And in page number 49, it talks about the planning for the residential area. Nothing about this type of planning is mentioned in here. On the other hand, it mentions something completely different. And my house is also featured in here. So, but the point is that this is the direction that we were going with single homes, beautiful house. Villa Park, and this street in particular, have beautiful backyards. And just because we can fit 5 or 6 houses, that doesn't mean that we should. Another point that I'm concerned is, I don't know if the architect is familiar with the area, how come during the weekend, but I have children. We ride our bikes in the street a lot. We pass through there. There's children that ride bikes and walk around here. There's also Montessori school. The concern also I have about the addition of the traffic is concerning. The relationship of the houses that are around there doesn't show it in this blueprint. You should go and see this area where the other houses will be located around this plan. It doesn't show it in this drawing. He talks about the unique look. I will disagree with that. There's nothing unique about it. It actually looks like a townhouse. And it's cookie cutter. I repeated 5 times a townhouse. And if it's a single home and it looks like a townhouse, that's not pretty. And it's the future plans actually are to change the ordinance to maybe make a later townhouse? Could that be, I have a question about that. If by changing the ordinance, would that be something that later on he can change and say, you know what, I'm gonna make this into a townhouse? I'm concerned about that. I'm not sure about if that is a direction that it could happen if we open this Pandora box with the change of the ordinance. That's a question that I have for the commission. The other thing that he mentioned about the value of the house is actually William depreciating my house. He says that it makes good sense, that it's good for the community. I didn't hear anything that brought those points. In which way? That we keep the chain link fence that is there now? The increase about cart, again, I mentioned that. And also, he mentioned that this is not the norm for the area. What I want to bring is this is not the norm for the area. There's nothing around this area like that. You should take a look at the houses that are in Monterey. They're beautiful. They're very unique. My point is also, what is it that is good for us in the community? I live there. I will be directly affected by this project. I don't still get it. How will this be good for the community? I actually am very concerned about not just the drainage, but the traffic, the increase of traffic. We are in 10 more cars additional. There is now 20. The value depreciation of the houses, and also the look of this. It's a beautiful project for somewhere else, not for here. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
My name is Mike Broska, B-R-Z-O-S-K-A. I'm at 315 South Monterey. My wife and I moved to Villa Park over 30 years ago. As most of us here, I think, agree, the charm of Villa Park are the deep lots. Having a beautiful deep lot to enjoy with your family, and if you have kids or pets, it's even a plus to have the deep lots. Again, the previous speaker mentioned the individuality of the homes. I mean, these look like cookie cutters. We're throwing in a bunch of, almost look like townhouses, but I guess they're not. They're individual residences, but they look like townhouses. And they're thrown into a community of very unique homes. Again, there's 5 homes instead of perhaps 3. As the previous speaker mentioned, the traffic. There's a lot of traffic on Monterey, especially around that curve on Park Avenue going back north on Monterey. I'm surprised there aren't more accidents there, but more traffic certainly isn't going to diminish that possibility. And again, the children, you see children many times coming from the Montessori school trying to cross, and you see the people like this with the kids. I mean, they know people aren't always looking, and they're zipping around that corner. Now you're talking about having 5 more families. How many cars are they going to have? How many drivers? So I want to be on the record. I am against this proposed development for the above reasons stated. The drainage is certainly an issue, the traffic, and definitely losing the charm of our neighborhood.
Hi, I'll make this short and sweet. My name is Joe Mazzoni, M-A-Z-Z-O-N-E. I live at 625 East Park Boulevard, which is the furthest most northeast corner, so the draining obviously is one of my concerns. The other is the height of these. I think they're going to be 30 foot tall. Is that correct? I don't know. Well, anyways, this gentleman here said it's in uniform with Monterey Avenue. However, Park Boulevard, they're all ranch houses, basically. So now you're going to have these 30-foot structures towering over our backyards, which my backyard, I see trees, I see the sky, because the 2 big lots meet right in the middle of my yard. So I sit on my deck, I look out, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. Now I'm going to look into someone's bedroom window with their light on. Probably, I mean, not directly behind me, but further down. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to lose my privacy. I have a pool, my deck, I love it out there. Basically, that's my concern is I don't think that, like everybody else said, it's good for the community or the value of our homes. So, with that said, I'm against it.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Dameron, D-A-M-E-R-O-N. I'm at 231 South Monterey, and my husband and I walked the neighborhood this past week and obtained over 100 signatures of the people on Park, Monterey, Riverside. Did I get them? Yeah, I think that's it. All opposed to this plan. Top 3 concerns were obviously drainage, aesthetics, does not fit in with our neighborhood. The 2 houses on the Monterey side back up to Monterey, so when you walk down the street, you see the back of a house, which is not very appealing. And the 3rd issue was parking, was traffic and parking. So, thank you.
Hi, my name is Joe Neely, N-E-I-L-L-Y. I live at 521 South Monterey Avenue, and I will repeat that I am concerned about the drainage, but one of the things that I don't think has been mentioned explicitly is the fact that the property right now is very open, very porous. It's almost all green, with single house with a driveway and a garage, and we would substantially cover much of that ground. So whatever runoff is there would be increased substantially by the amount of drainage that you're taking away. So I'm real concerned, especially about all the people nearby, that they're going to see that increased runoff. The other thing I like about Villa Park is the character. We moved here 30 years ago. We love it. All the houses are pretty unique. Even ones that were similar, back in the 20s have evolved, and we really have great properties with nice backyards and very unique styles. And the cookie cutter thing just, I don't think, fits very well here. The last thing is, again, with traffic, that intersection where Monterey does a jog along Park is a real tricky intersection. The right-of-way is the street that is Monterey, which is not intuitive because you think it's a T intersection and you should be stopping. There's a lot of confusion on that property. It's going to get worse. And this development is not very far from the Prairie Path. The Prairie Path comes down from Route 83, and it's a relatively quick, it's a hill, so people are coming down there fast. They often cross Monterey quickly. I believe there was just an incident there within the last week or two where somebody was seriously hurt. You're going to increase the traffic there, and you're just going to increase the danger for the bike riders and the runners and everybody who's using the path. So I'm opposed to the development as it's stated now, although I wouldn't mind seeing it improved.
Hi, my name is Jean Hemzacek, Hemzacek. I live at 531 South Monterey, and I'd like to start with two things. One is that I'd like to reemphasize everything that my neighbors have said here. I'd also like to say that I appreciate that the village staff has looked at this in the way that they have, and have looked at the PUD requirements so carefully and don't find this plan to meet those. But there are a couple of other things that I'd like to add. I am concerned about aesthetics. I'm really concerned about drainage. And while I recognize and appreciate that the commission can't do anything about that, it's up to the engineers to look at this, I think there are a couple of things that have been misstated or not stated as they should in this regard that I would like to make the village staff aware of. One is the interchangeability, as it's been done here, the use of the term permeable pavers and pervious pavers. They are two different things. Permeable pavers are not themselves permeable. They add impermeable surface. So in the calculations for total impermeable surface that's going to be part of this development, those permeable pavers are impervious surface. It's only the spaces between permeable pavers that give the permeability. Pervious pavers, however, do add some permeability, but that's still not the same kind of permeability as grass or soil. The other thing that's really important to understand is it's not just about topography, it's not just about creating a street that doubles as a detention basin. It's about understanding the soil in this area. And at a depth of not more than 12 inches in this area, even if you're excavating some of that and replacing it with gravel, we have silty clay or clay orthents in this area. It means the water isn't going to go through that and work its way into the groundwater. The engineers don't look at that. The staff members don't look at that. We need to look at that, and we need to understand the hydrology and the geology of this area in addition to the other factors that will add to drainage problems. Thank you.
Hi, Jen Burns, B-U-R-N-S, 311 South Illinois. I'm sorry I was tardy to the meeting. Do we already have the financing secured for this project, for the developer? We don't, not like the Garden Avenue project where financing fell apart. If he's able to develop this property, is the financing already locked in place? Do we know that yet? Okay, excellent, okay. I have concerns about parking, and that's already been brought up. I'm just not sure. It's not like the 1950s where each home maybe had one vehicle or, maybe two. Probably each person maybe in these residences will have their own vehicle. I also had the concern about, are they going to stay single residents, or could they quickly be altered to become townhomes because the market changes or something else? I realize, I understand and appreciate the opportunity to put 5, 6 homes on here, but one of the things in this particular area that one of the other gentlemen already mentioned were the deep lots. That is a hallmark to that area of Villa Park. People wait till those kinds of homes come on the market to be able to invest and come into our communities. I would have loved 3 beautiful homes, maybe 550, 600,000. Let's bring back some of the villas of Villa Park, that are starting to disappear and they fell into disrepair. The property on Summit and Highland. That would have been gorgeous if the homeowner could have maintained it. Some of the stucco homes that we have. We just have so many unique architectural types of pieces here. It would have been a great opportunity to keep that deep lot and put in some really pretty homes and keep those, again, I think some of the fears about the drainage that we all have, especially with the recent rains as well, is huge, and it's weighing on us all very heavily. So thank you for your time.
Good evening. Chris Dameron, D-A-M-E-R-O-N, 231 South Monterey. As my wife already spoke, her and I did, in a matter of a week and a half, got 104 signatures from everybody in our neighborhood. Mainly, I'm going to be reiterating other stuff people said, but we moved here 3 years ago from Chicago to get out of places like that, where you have tiny little lots, houses crammed up against each other, where you can smell what your neighbor's cooking for dinner. You can hear them fighting at night. You can hear their kids crying at night. We moved out here for the big lots, for the houses that are all different, not for this type of project. I am a contractor by trade. I've been in the building trades for 25 years. I've built production houses, which are what these are. You have 4 houses that are basically the same. They're boilerplate houses. You flip them end over end, do a mirror image, build them cheaper that way. Put cheap finishes in them. That's kind of what this is. This isn't Villa Park. This is not what our neighborhood has. We have nothing like this in our neighborhood, so why start the precedent now? Because once you do it one time, you open the doors. Everybody can start, hey, look, Villa Park, look, they're letting us build these junk houses. That's kind of what they're going to do. So, and at $200 a square foot is basically where he's figuring that at. That's going to depreciate the value of everybody's house in that neighborhood. So, and right now, as I see it, he's asking for 8 zoning variances. Shouldn't that tell you that the project is a little oversized for the neighborhood if he's asking for 8 variances for one project? As far as the permeable pavers, sure, it's mainly been hit, but for these big waters, they call them the 100-year storms that we seem to get every 6 months to 12 months. Where does all that water go? We live 3 blocks or 3 doors south of there. On a 2-inch rain, we get 6 inches of water in our yard. On a 4-inch rain, we get a foot of water, and our neighbors behind us have more than that. Where's all that water going to go? It's just going to go right into our basements. It's not going into our yards. So, thank you. Have a good night.
Tom Perillo, P-A-R-R-I-L-L-O, 516 South Monterey. I have just want to reiterate a concern about drainage. We live up the street. On a heavy rain, we get about 3 feet of water. It takes about a week for it to recede. That's all going to go downhill, down toward that direction. I was looking at the design, not really sure whether it's a single family or a duplex. From the appearance, it looks like a duplex. I'm concerned about that. When we have family who come in from Frankfurt or some of the newer communities, one of the first things they say is that Villa Park, every house looks different. These all look alike. It looks like Plainfield. It doesn't look like our community. I'm concerned about that. There's no unique design in this, and that was brought up by staff. They also look like they're a little bit too jammed together, and so for those reasons, I'm against the project. Thank you.
Robert Baker, Baker at 316 South Monterey. July of 1973, I bought my house on Monterey, my first house on Monterey, where Mike Broska now lives. My house didn't look like that. It was a stucco Chicago bungalow type. 5 years later, I moved right across the street, driveway to driveway. So I've lived on this block since July of 1973. And sorry for being late, excuse me, but when somebody said, fronting Monterey, we're going to be looking at the back of a house. Now that's a crock, folks. We bought where we did because of these lots. I raised 4 children on that block. My now wife, because my first wife died, Carol Rose, right there in that chair, used to live right next to that property line, south. She said, I would have been aghast if somebody was going to do that while I lived in that house. Folks, no. N-O. No, what part of N-O don't you understand? The second thing is I would question is the sewer connection. I'm not an engineer, I don't have a clue. But when we when we voted in the village for the streets and sewers and all that kind of stuff, this last bond referendum, when you looked at that, when I went to the planning meetings for that, more than the southern half of that whole block, in other words, from Park to Highland, most of that block is on a much bigger drain pipe in the village plan. The last few houses, not too many, coming north on that block get a smaller drain pipe. And my question would be, the village staff, is that still going to be the case? Or is the village going to incur a higher construction cost whenever we get around to doing that? Okay, just a point. All right? Thank you for your time.
My name is Vic Wisner, W-I-S-N-E-R, and I live at 306 South Monterey. I just want to reiterate everything everybody else said. Very concerned about the water, obviously the aesthetics of this thing. Also, I can be Bob. My mother lived on this street in 1939, so she's been here a little bit longer. I do agree. I love the idea that all the homes are different. Right? I grew up on the north side of town, and my father painted our house an ugly brown because he got tired of pulling into the neighbor's house. So I think it's one of the things that invites people here. And one thing I want to add to you guys is we're at this magnificent time in Villa Park where things are growing. Businesses are moving in. Our high school is bursting. Our grade schools are bursting. This is a great opportunity for you guys to do something and do it correctly, and I think you have. A lot of the homes on Monterey and Oakland and Riverside, the ones that have been torn down and put back up, have lived up to those characteristics that everyone's talked about. A lot of my neighbors here have done the same thing as I have, has changed the appearance of their homes to fit in and change. And I think what a great opportunity you guys have, because this isn't going to be the first time, especially in that area. Those lots are huge, right? I think a lot of other towns would have enjoyed the opportunity to look back and say, how can I preserve our historic part of Villa Park or of our town instead of tearing it down these tiny little pieces? We're not Elmhurst, and I don't want to be, even if Bob's wearing a New York shirt. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Art Shameti, S-H-A-M-E-T-I. I live at 209 South Monterey. I'm next to that property. And my concern is, of course, like everybody says about the drainage. The first house is going to block my view. I have an open view. I'm right in the corner of Monterey and Park Boulevard. I've already seen a lot of traffic. A couple of years ago, a car drove through my yard, through the fence. Now, the traffic is going to be more congested, plus the houses. That lot is only 3-pin numbers. Why they want to split it in 5 or 6? It's only 3 lots. There should be 3 houses and facing Monterey. I mean, my view is going to be blocked. I'm not going to see nothing. Now I have a beautiful view. I see trees, I see the neighbor's house, the front door of the neighbor's house. I am not going to see the back 2-story wall like President is going to build a wall right now over there. You know, I'm against that proposal.
My name is Pamela Porter, and I live on that very far northeast corner that the architect was always referring to. And last year, the village totally ripped up Park. It's the corner of Riverside and Park. And they put down sewer drains, which was great. And I had a nice discussion with the engineer because they also helped our property and a couple other properties right in that corner, because he said, it's not just this area that the water is coming from. He said, the water coming through, this is a nexus where all of the water from the whole quadrant is coming down. And to take away any extra drainage would just put a terrible burden on our systems. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the precedent this would set. Other neighbors have talked about this, that suddenly we're throwing out the code book, a little here, a little there. These are already too close together. The 3 at the end are too close together. If you have a house right next to each other, I was told earlier in the year that each side yard had to be 10 feet if they're right next to each other. That's the way the code is reading now. I don't know if the side yards on these are each 3 feet or each is 6 feet, but it's still less than what's required now. And if the village starts denigrating the codes, this would just set a terrible precedent for our community and double lots. Thank you.
You know, I didn't get sworn in, so I guess we got to do that real quick. I do. My name is Eric Gustafson, and I live at 131 East Van Buren Street in Villa Park, Illinois. Nowhere near this area. So that'll tell you why I'm here, because I've lived in this town 28 years. I'm 41 years old, and this is definitely not Villa Park like they said. On top of that, the floodplain maps change. Right now they're changing today. And what happens is they take these topographical pictures and photos, and they calculate roofs and streets, and then they determine what the base flood elevation is, correct? That's how it works. The biggest problem here is they don't take into consideration that that's permeable or whatever they're talking about. They take into consideration ground coverage. All these people here who aren't in a floodplain could end up in a floodplain, and when that happens, they might not be able to afford to live in their homes. That's what you guys need to look at. Thank you.
Okay. And the way that this works is, okay. Yeah, you know, no, that's all right. What I was going to say is that the next 2 agenda items are questions from commission, closing comments petitioner, and then there's another opportunity for the public to speak. That's what I was going to say, but go ahead.
Oh, I can wait. I was not sworn in. I was late. I'm sorry.
You know, I'd like to say something too, so I also like to speak.
Jeannie.
Anyone else? No, it's all right.
So I'm Vicki Flaskamp, Flaskamp, 421 South Oakland. So I'm sorry, I apologize, I was late, working late, so if I'm repeating some of the comments, I apologize. But as everyone's mentioned, that we're definitely concerned with the water issue within our area. I think that's a given. I think my biggest concern would also be the traffic in that particular area. It's kind of jogged right in that area, and it's like sometimes not even on a map. I take Uber sometime, whatever, they don't even know it's there. So that's concerning to me, and how they're going to afford, 10 plus homes with possibly 2 plus 3 cars to coming in and out of that particular area. Also, as Vic mentioned over there, he's lived here forever. I grew up on the north side of Villa Park, and I look at this and I don't see it as Villa Park. I've lived here, my parents have lived here since 1960. And I just look at this particular property, and it's huge, it's a nice lot. That's why we moved to the south side of Villa Park. I looked outside of my house when I bought it, and I said, wow, that's a huge backyard, and that's why I bought my house, for the yardage. We lived in Chicago prior to that for a couple of years, and then I moved back to Villa Park, my hometown. So I'd be very disappointed with the village if this is an area where we want to go to. Even the aesthetics of the design does not fit. It doesn't, and, I'm sorry, I can have some knowledge. I was an interior design major with a minor in architecture, and I look at everything that's all around us and everything that we want. I've added onto my house twice and kept within the architecture of my house to make sure that it fit in within the neighborhood and it didn't change the aesthetics. I've invested, and I don't want to see this bring down the investment that I've made in my home and what I wanted to bring up my children and move forward and keep continuing living here. So I really do feel that, I am against the project. I would love, as someone mentioned, to see 3 houses possibly built on this lot, because it's a huge lot, it's beautiful, and that's what we are. We are the Garden Village. Where's the garden? I don't see it. I'm sorry. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janine Perillo, Parrillo. I'm at 516 South Monterey. A lot of my concerns have already been raised here as far as the aesthetics, the drainage, so on and so forth. My husband and I, we moved here in August of 2000, and one of the main appealing part of this neighborhood were the deep lots and the character of the neighborhood. One of my concerns, I know people keep mentioning 3 lots here, and I'm having a concern with that too, unless I see it set up a little differently, because I'm looking at this plan over here, and it shows the properties that's behind there, and it shows 50 and 50. And my understanding was that you had to be at least 50 wide, and maybe I'm wrong in thinking that, because our property is 50 wide. And so if you broke it down where it was 3 houses, it still seems like it would be a little too narrow for those houses. You'd have a nice long backyard, but you'd still be really close to your neighbor. So unless it's set up differently that I don't see here, it still seems like 3 houses side by side would be too close, and that's something I would probably want to see if it was a revised plan. So thank you very much.
Okay. As I said before, after the closing comments of petitioner, you may have an opportunity to speak again. So with that, we're going to move along to questions from commission members. Questions from commission members.
I have a few questions.
Commissioner Hassler.
I'm looking at this for the petitioner. I'm looking at this sheet of paper here, and it's got this stormwater calculations, and I'm just trying to figure this out. A lot of this stuff is, I'm not a civil engineer, but a couple of these things here, it says required storage is 18,165 cubic feet. Provided storage, it says 6,780 cubic feet, significantly less. But then it says underneath here, purchase storage of 11,385 to make up the balance of this requirement. What is purchase storage?
Sir, you want to?
This is again part of the stormwater management system of the village of Villa Park. That you can buy certain of the storage as long as you do not change the pattern of the drainage and you impact the neighbors out of that. The extra storage, if it is not provided, can be purchased, and that's the rule of the village of Villa Park.
So you're just basically you're paying for the privilege of not, I mean, I don't understand, you're purchasing the water storage, so you're not buying a big tank and storing this water.
That's what part of the rule is.
So there will be a storage tank?
If we need to provide more storage that we require to do, we will do. This is just a concept on the table. And by the way, I don't know if you want to go further on this one or not and question this one. I appreciate all your comments. I think you have spoken loudly to me. It is not something that I want to force myself in the neighborhood. I'm not a developer. This is my first project. I have been an architect, a structural engineer. I have been teacher at IIT for 20 years. And I have great respect for the people. And I thought, in my humble opinion, that I'm adding values to this area. If you really feel so strongly about that, I do not have any problem to drop, because I see the comments from the administrators here, from the staff. I did not hear that one previously. That was the first time of kind of opposition I heard that. And my opinion, I'm sorry. Also, you have spoken very loudly. I am very close to drop this one. I don't have any problem to drop the idea. Go with the 3 houses, just like the tree that you see in the right side. It's going to be on the Monterey, 3 of them, the same distance. That's what the zoning code is. And probably that would not add anything or subtract anything from the profitability of a kind of investment that this kind of property can afford. So if really, I can drop it now, but I also can wait and have you think about it. If you are very serious about this one, no problem. We will continue with the 3-lot development here. That would put me at least to this year the schedule, rather than going through the whole engineering, the whole cost of the cul-de-sac, the whole cost of the detention pond, and the whole cost of the utilities. I honestly thought it is an addition to the neighborhood. And I have been an architect for almost 40 years, 30-some years. I have done a lot of architectural and planning. I'm also a civil engineer. So I have done these things. You proved me wrong. And thank you for that. It's not something that I would regret at all.
Okay, so it sounds like you're going to want to continue or rethink your application, perhaps?
I'm not the person to decide instantly. Usually this is not the right thing to do.
So then I would propose that we get through comments from commissioners, because I think it may inform you whether it's a 5 or a 3 unit development. And at the closing comments, I guess what we could do is see if you would want to continue this to the next month, to a next date certain, giving you time to rethink whatever. But I think it would be good to hear questions and maybe slash some comments from the commission members.
Sure, certainly.
Because I think some of our comments will pertain either way.
I just wanted to adjust the environment of not animosity, but the hard feeling. I'm very much ready to drop it. Go with the 3. If you think the 3-lot subdivision of this thing is the best.
I think it's great. It's very positive that you're wanting to listen to your neighbors and have their comments impact what you're proposing. That's great. That's why we're all here tonight. But I think let's let commission members
Certainly.
ask you some questions, make some comments, and then at that time, after you hear everything, I'll probably come back to you and say, is a month enough, or do you want to continue to 2 months? And give yourselves some time to think through, so that when you come back, you'll have incorporated, because that's what we're going to ask you is, incorporate everything that you've heard when you come back, okay, into your proposal.
Certainly, I am open to the comments and the questions.
Great.
Okay, I just have a few more questions. With this, back to my original question, so you'd be purchasing a storage tank?
Let me explain this one. I think you put it very well. The fact that the whole drainage area will go and is going through the maximum scrutiny from the village, from the DuPage County, and from any other jurisdiction. A planning board member should not ask that question as a thing that, what's the detail of this?
I'm just looking at the exhibit that you provided me, and I have some questions on this exhibit.
It is according to the laws of the village of Villa Park.
Okay, so, all right, so this exhibit here we're not going to talk about.
No, it is according to the law.
I have some questions on it.
Yes. I don't know why the village put this law in there, but I cannot answer if I am buying the tank or not. This is really a kind of comment that I cannot answer.
All right, I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I got some other questions too. There was some question about a chain link fence that you're going to keep, but then I'm looking at this other exhibit that you provided, this one here, to us, and it shows up here a wooden fence that's going to be constructed?
This is a generic detailed form which comes with the landscaping plan. If you look at the landscaping plan, you will not find any wood fence.
That's my question. That's my question, because we have this wooden fence here.
This is a generic
there was
form.
concerns about the chain link fence. So the chain link, okay. Let me grab my notes here. I was thinking, I apologize. You're asking for a variance on this road, and from 60 feet to 54 feet, you're going to narrow it. I guess a couple of things. One, I guess why wouldn't it just be a private drive and owned by a homeowners association?
There are many solutions to that. I agree
And
with you.
and the second reason I say that is because this is a this is going to be the only chunk of road in Villa Park that's brick, and it's got the gravel underneath. And I don't know if our, not to say anything disparaging about our Public Works Department, but maybe it takes a little special care to maintain this brick road. As nice as it is, and I think a lot of roads in Villa Park could be like this way. They absorb some water, but again, are the plows going to tear it up? I mean, how long is it going to last? And that sort of thing. So, a lot of the roads in Villa Park are asphalt for a reason, because it's cheap and it's effective, and so that's my concern there.
Do you want an answer on that? Or,
Yes. Why wasn't it on a homeowner association?
This was one of the options that we had at the beginning, and we are still open to that if needed to go that route. I think, or many people that I talked to, again, this is something open to discussion, thought that this is a better way to go for the village to maintain, and especially the public work department. They had some idea, and I don't want to talk for them because I might be quoting people wrong. I might have quoted you wrong also. I'm sorry, but I'm just, it's something that open for discussion. The fact that this kind of road is there and it is not anything like that in Villa Park doesn't reduce the high, and I stress, high quality of this construction. It is a very expensive road that you are putting in, and it serves a purpose of reducing the drainage. If it is not anything like that in the Villa Park and you do not want to have it, then again, I already offered my...
No, I did say, I guess my concern is not wanting it, just not wanting to absorb the cost of maintaining it.
There is no, actually this
I think it would be the
is
homeowners
almost
association would
maintenance-free.
probably...
This is one of the more maintenance-free You pay ahead of time for these roads, and it says maintenance free. The asphalt you have to repair, the drainage has to be fixed, but these things almost maintenance free.
Okay. And one more question here. It looks like, and maybe Richard can answer this for me. It looks like currently, I'm looking at this exhibit here, and currently that lot's not subdivided, correct?
It is divided into.
It is 3 separate lots. I see these are all separate lots, and then this one's just kind of drawn.
Well,
The proposed development does take into account the 3 lots, the one that fronts along Monterey, and then the 2 behind it.
Oh, so it's going to go all the way here?
Yeah, it's a very deep lot.
I see, because it's going to be... So how many square feet is this big lot right here
There
right
are
now?
3 pin numbers
Is it like
to
the
that.
37,000 or something like that?
No, those 3 lots total just over 50,000 square feet.
Just over 50,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so basically, if I had a 50,000 square foot lot, I could build on 30% of it?
Yes, it is also calculated.
Yes.
in the
And so
first
that I could have a footprint of 15,000 square feet? 2 stories, I could build a 30,000 square foot house?
Yes.
Just
hypothetical, yes.
Okay, just checking.
So, everyone, the court reporter is doing her best, but remember, we can have one voice in the room at the time, so that she can capture that. So please just be respectful of everyone and the court reporter. Thank you. Commissioner Hassler, any more questions?
For now. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Just to add, continue with a comment on that, all the calculation for the square footage, the coverage is on the first page that you mentioned, you showed at the beginning. The cover sheet has all the calculation.
I was looking at, I mean,
Yes.
technically, by code,
Everything
you
within
need
the-
37,500 square feet. And what you have are lots totaling 36,641 square feet, so you're about 1,000 feet shy. The variance you're asking for in total is about 1,000 square feet by the numbers that you have on this exhibit. This one right here? You're talking about the lot sizes and
The second table in the, after that, below that table, the second table, if you look, has all the area coverages.
Yeah, correct.
And that one is the one I'm referring to.
Correct.
Okay, other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Jarrett?
Well, you came in before for plan review. You had mentioned some design elements, possibly around the cul-de-sac or possibly at the entrance of the cul-de-sac. Nothing like that is presented here. I do kind of agree with staff. This is partial comment, partial question. I don't necessarily have a problem with the concept of a cul-de-sac here. There are actually 6 cul-de-sacs fairly close to me. I live in Villa Park, obviously, in Lombard, that are fairly well done. But it seems like some of the elements that you talked about initially when you came in for the just initial review, there's nothing like that here. We've heard about the cookie cutter houses. I feel that. The duplex look to the house. I'm assuming the house that has the 2 garages, you were trying to keep symmetry? Is that the point of,
Yes,
of that?
it certainly is a point.
It
can
looks
be-
like a duplex. I mean,
if I refer you to the cover sheet again that I have, if you look at the area of that house, it takes the maximum 30% of the coverage that we can put. And if you look at the plan, which plan is also presented to you, it's such a small area that there is no way that you can make a duplex out of it.
no, I understand that it's not a duplex, and
No, it's the
couldn't be
appearance of.
right because of the fact that this is a planned development. I mean, it can't be a duplex if it's a single-family home, because that's what that's one thing we should say. If these are 5 single-family homes in a planned development, without changing the planned development, they couldn't become duplexes. So that's not an issue. But it kind of looks like a duplex because the separate garages.
I respect your opinion.
Are you, as an architect and engineer, willing to dig into this and think about ways to make the individual houses individual, make the cul-de-sac have some amenities for, I mean, I know you've only got so much space, but are those the kind of things that you're willing to consider going forward?
Certainly, yeah, we are open to this as well. There is a very fine balance between there is a lot of interpretation or definition of a upper end quality of some area. We might have not communicated properly probably in the previous conversation.
Yeah.
Or maybe I did not stand to my promises in certain areas. We are certainly open to that, to see what we can do to bring it to a level which is acceptable to most of the people, not only me,
right,
on the type of the quality of the material and the design that can go there. But we still have to also consider, or we have to consider before we drop it, we have to consider the economy of the investment.
Correct.
If it doesn't work, if it costs, say, if it costs $550,000 to build that house, and then the price of the neighborhood that the Villa Park can afford. Right now, our market study shows that the maximum that the Villa Park can afford is below $500,000 generally. It may be some exception to that, but it is always. So if we come up with the calculation that our cost is going to be more than $500 per cost, $500,000 per house, there is no reason to do it. As a matter of fact, the reason I am ready to drop it because our numbers doesn't add up very nicely. So certainly we are open to that, and I'm not a quitter. I will continue. I'll get the time to work on it if needed, if there is an agreement, if there is a total understanding that I'm going the wrong way. First of all, I can put it on my final comments. But
my point is, these are very deep lots, and some people do like very deep lots. But for many homeowners and many property owners, they do become unwieldy. There are parts of this community that have lots this deep where the back 100 feet are fenced off and essentially a forest preserve where they're barely maintained because it's a lot of yard to maintain.
That's why I don't like it. It's a lot of work to
so I understand this point. I understand what the neighbors, their concerns are. With the planned development, we have a lot of opportunity to create very specific guidelines for design aesthetics, architectural aesthetics, and I think what I was hearing from staff and the way I think about it is, if this is going to go forward, this really needs to be unique. I mean, it needs to be creative. And this doesn't feel any different to me than what came in several months ago. It doesn't feel any more fleshed out. So that's more comment than question. But, I see you have the play area and the common area on here, but, what does that mean? Those are the kind of things that, at this point, as a commission, we would want to see. Like, what does that really mean? What are the real design aesthetics of this? And if you're willing to look into some of that going forward, I guess that's my question, because that's what I need to hear.
We are certainly open to this idea and the question. I'm open to that because I want to challenge myself on this. But the idea of having a wrought iron fence all around this area, it's a little excessive, in my opinion. We may put a new chain link fence, but that's excessive. I just built a community center right on the North Avenue and we put only the wrought iron in front of it, the other 3 sides, and this is a community center, relatively wealthy, we still put a chain link fence because, as a matter of fact, I think chain link fence has a better quality between neighbor to neighbor than a wrought iron, which is create a kind of prejudice between the 2 communities right by each other. That's my opinion.
And I, just to make clear, I do understand, you know, that there's a balance between design and economics, and there's a balance. I'm glad to hear you might be willing to work towards that. I guess for questions, that's all I have at the moment. I probably have more, but
Other commission members, thank you.
I have 2. Could you eliminate that fence altogether? Is there a reason why we have to have a fence there at all?
Certainly. If
It's your fence. It's your fence, the chain link fence.
Right now, again, I'm sorry if I somehow offended anybody here. I have built houses in Villa Park, to be specific, in Summit Avenue, just north of Roosevelt Avenue, deep lots also, and I built it. The owners who purchased it end up having just a jungle, or whatever you want to call it, a forest in the back, and then just use the certain amount of that area. And that's not pretty, they don't like it, and they are, so that was my impression of the deep lot, and I'm sorry that some people, I don't think the way that some other people think. But I looked at the neighborhood in that area when I purchased this property, they are all fenced around. If they don't like it, I don't have any problem moving it totally. But I thought maybe this privacy, sense of privacy that every house may create around himself may be valuable. That's why I'm doing it.
So, I guess my question is, you could eliminate the fence. There's no reason when you do a PUD that you have to have a fence, correct? So one, you could be without the fence. The other thing is, I've seen this development, and we all have. It's over on Madison, just before, as you're traveling west, just before you get to Westmore. They took some real deep lots and they put in cul-de-sacs. Pickerel built some houses back in there.
I'll take a look at it. I haven't.
Yeah, but you know what? That street works because it's a busier street. You have the St. Pius right across the street. I'm having a hard time with the side view of the house facing a street that's such a neighborhood. I think it might deter if we're still in the talking phase. That would be something. Boy, if you could, the side of a house, because you know what's going to happen to everybody on Monterey. That might be where the person's going to store their ladder. You know, so the side of the house facing Monterey is a concern.
The aesthetics of the side of the house facing Monterey.
Side of the house or the back of the house?
Back of the house, sorry, back of the house, sorry.
Okay, yes. Well, the back, that if there is it may be true. I don't know. If the back of the house means where there's a more privacy, what you're saying, that it may be...
It's facing the street. I think the point is, and it goes back to the neighborhood association concept as well, which is what we talked about when you came in the first time, because the back side of that house faces Monterey. First of all, we wouldn't be expecting that it looked like the back side of a house.
Yeah,
it'd be a pleasant elevation that gives some architectural detail like its neighboring properties do. That's the first point. The second point would be is we would want to see that the neighbor couldn't store his ladder back there, because it becomes the front yard for the neighbor across the street, if you get us. And normally around Villa Park, when you have a deeper yard and back, that's where you store your tools, your grill, and it can be not as attractive as the front street-facing elevation. So we would want the developer and the architect to address that in the design, so that it's not something that the neighbors have to deal with, contend with. So I think that's where the point is heading, is that you got to really, if you're going to move forward this, you have to very carefully consider how people are going to live there, where they're going to store those items that they're going to have, so that it doesn't provide visual nuisance to the rest of the neighbors, because realizing that those are the rear of those houses that face Monterey, it should look like front elevations, and right now the elevations you're showing us don't look like front elevations. So I think, and I probably added on a comment to Vince's.
Yeah, that's perfect. You said what I was trying to say.
That's a legitimate, I think.
Right, because you've got to walk this line. If you're going to do a development like this on a street like Monterey, you have to walk that line between, you do want the cul-de-sac to feel like a community, but you don't want the cul-de-sac to feel different, as isolated from Monterey. And putting what appears to be the back of the house on Monterey is turning its back on the street.
I agree. As a matter of fact, when we were talking about the wrought iron fence, the only place that I was envisioning to have it was in the Monterey side, with even some stonework, as the staff also referred to, having some stone facade in there, that we are open to that. It's something that I'm willing to work on this one to get it something more.
Yeah, and my question to you earlier about those aesthetics is those were some of the features that you had said, I think I would like to do this, or maybe I think you mentioned an archway, and some people said, well, maybe an archway is too much, but Villa Park does have hitching posts in for horses in some of the neighborhoods, on some of the old houses. I mean, you could do some brickwork, or there's things that you could do.
We are open to that.
I don't have any specific ideas at this time, but that's kind of the designer's.
So, I'm sorry. Let's make sure Vince is done.
Yeah, I have just one more.
Okay, then go to you next.
If back with the side of the house, or the back of the house, if that house were to face Monterey, if those two houses were to face Monterey, would that, you might pick up some land. Rather than put a driveway there, you might have you ever looked into that? If it faced Monterey, I know it would take away from the feel of the cul-de-sac, but it wouldn't take away from the street. I almost think you wouldn't have as much hard surface if you did it that way.
Side loading driveways.
Yeah.
I mean, just thoughts.
Yeah, I would look at it differently. I would probably try to find a solution for whatever storage or whatever things that you're talking about. In many places, including my area, I put all my junks in the garage. But people are different. So it might be a solution from that viewpoint that maybe some area can be devoted for that in the cul-de-sac area rather than inside. Because I'm looking in the backyard of this smaller backyard as a area of privacy, that you can have your barbecue in the weekend if you want to, and you have kids play in the yard, that small yard that you have to. I would envision some maybe working couple to come and get these places that a little more savvy. That's how I envision it. I may be totally wrong, just in that area. But I see the backyard as a more a lively place. Especially with a smaller backyard, when there is no forest behind it, you are not going to throw garbage in that forest. You're going to keep it clean. But I agree that there are always garbage in the house, that you have to put it somewhere. And maybe I look at it from that viewpoint to find a solution for that.
Okay.
I'm good.
Commissioner Bello, then Commissioner Olowski.
I was thinking along the same lines as Vince. First of all, flipping the house completely so that it fronts towards Monterey. The problem being then the back end is going towards the cul-de-sac, and I'm guessing those people would object. So, in as much as nobody wants cookie cutters, if you come in with different designs, maybe you could put these houses on sideways, so they're facing what I'll call the main drive of the cul-de-sac, so that nobody's really getting the back.
Yeah, I think the garages would still go to the cul-de-sac because we don't want to have three opening into that area to the Monterey for the same thing. Right now, I think one of the positives was that we have only one opening to the property, and everybody comes in and out through that one, and we don't have all the asphalt driveways going to that area. So it's more green, and it can be done in a different way. The fact that we have the two side yards which opening to the driveway, and we actually made the entrances of the houses into those side yards to the street which goes to the cul-de-sac, so it gives it some character. We already did this part. We can work in this line to make it a little more elaborate, and also in the backyard to make it more favorable or better. That's all I can say.
I mean, obviously I would hate to see the back ends of the house facing Monterey. And if you're going to go away from the cookie cutter, which I think is important,
let's see.
You can redesign those two houses to better.
Okay, Commissioner Olowski.
Yeah, and I'll revert back to the first get-together that we had, and you had kind of said something that would fit in and be aesthetically pleasing. The two houses that the backside face Monterey is definitely not pleasing. At least to me, you're going to have people walking down a sidewalk along somebody's backyard that you had just said that's your personal space and entertainment space. I don't like that idea. The water issue. I have spent lots of time on Monterey. I'm very familiar with the water that's over there. That's something that you're going to have to do a deep study on, because you're not talking about water from 10 houses. You're talking about water from 25 houses down the block, and that's what's coming down there. And whenever some of these people are telling you that they have 2 to 3 feet of water in their backyard, that's what it is, 2 to 3 feet, and that's what's moving. But in our first concept, you had said you would bring something that would fit in with the neighborhood. And looking at this over the weekend, I didn't find, to me, anything here that fit in with that neighborhood.
Can you elaborate in what aspect? I already know, I'm just, but your opinion.
The back sides of the houses facing the street, which every other house on the street has the front of the house facing the street. The design of the house.
Design of the house, okay.
I can't remember the gentleman's name that lived on the corner. It's like he's going to be isolated now from everything.
Well, let me also mention this one. If I put a 3-lot subdivision, he will have more wall than this one, because that house is going to be bigger and right in front of this property no matter what.
No, I understand that, but this concept here puts the one, actually possibly 2 driveways in his backyard. So if his house is here, you got 2 driveways right here that's going to affect.
Well, there are 6 houses, 5.5 houses along that property line. So every house will get 1 driveway if you want to be fair to that. But as a matter of fact, the fact that the whole cul-de-sac is open in both sides and gives a open space yet, I thought it a positive before I really get to a strong resistance. I thought it's a positive, but I will work on it. I'll work on it to get a better coordination between my idea and the respected planning commission, and of course, if there is any comment. So far, I have a totally negative. Each time that you clap, I woo. So it means that it is something that I'm playing with your souls and the feelings, and it's maybe not the right thing to do.
Okay, is that it for Commissioner Orlowski? Okay. Commissioner Romano.
Well, it's quite a night to be the new kid on the block, I'll tell you that much.
Welcome, by the way.
One thing I would like to say first, Mr. Jahidi, thank you. You came up here and you clearly heard the thoughts of the community, and I think it was received. I think that's an important thing to note. In terms of questions, I mean, if you're truly going to take back and kind of rethink the idea here based on what you've heard tonight, a lot of the questions and comments are moot up here. But my thought on where it stands right now is you had commented on there's no association fee situation there, but then there are common areas. I know it's a concept drawing, but there's some common areas, a little playground there. Clearly somebody has to maintain that if it's there, so you're automatically back in an association fee situation. For all of us that live in Villa Park, I think there's a saying that you should think about, and that's water finds a way, and it's usually into our basements. So, no matter what you plan and prepare for, I think it could be promised that there's so many unknowns with water in this area. A paver brick situation will probably present a problem there. I mean, and pavers, anybody that has pavers, I know these are high quality, but I'm not talking about 5 months from now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, somebody will have to maintain. Somebody will have to do massive amounts of repair as the silt gets into the drainage areas and between the bricks and everything, as the weeds start to grow up, and that puts, I would think, a financial burden on the village to what Mr. Hassler said about, maintenance these bricks as they chip, as they break, as they need to be replaced. I think there's issues there. So is that anything that there's consideration in with how plans sit right now? I'll also add to that, I'll throw a couple questions at you and just kind of throw a couple quick answers out this way. My thoughts, along with the community, is parking and traffic. Yes, all these houses have driveways, but as you get guest parking, is that flooding out into the street? Is it narrowing the cul-de-sac? If you have people parking on both sides, does that become kind of a pinch situation there? And in the backyards on Monterey, I thought aesthetically, there's valid concerns that, Villa Park has a certain look, and though it's dated, you can't recreate, or you can, but there's a cost to it to recreate bungalows built in the 1930s. Putting a backyard to Monterey really disrupts the street there in terms of aesthetics. So.
Yeah, from the traffic point of view, I think, again, this is my humble feeling, that we are helping have more parking available out of the Monterey Street. We are giving the Monterey all the side area except one driveway to inside. And when you come inside, if you look even at the 3D visualization that we create, you can see how much a car will take as part of the cul-de-sac, and we still have plenty of room. The same, we have a 2-car garage, and then we have in the back of it, we have another 2 or sometimes 3 cars on the tandem can park in the driveway out of Monterey, out of even visual disturbance, or whatever you want to call it. So parking wise and traffic wise, I think we are adding a positive thing to the area. Just going in and out of one street, one access point is a plus in my opinion, rather than having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 driveways going to the garages from the Monterey. Takes away the parking along the street and also creates more backup each time you want to come back. It creates a problem. This way, every car which comes out of this cul-de-sac is facing front. It doesn't have to back up and create a bunch of trouble. This is my opinion. And then the backyard, I agree with you. I don't know. I will work on it if it is going to continue. And the water, I'm a civil engineer. I have done a lot of development this way for the clients. And I have been in many public hearings, including the village of Villa Park, in the same place that I'm standing many years back. And each time we come here and the neighbors come to sit down and express their voice, the first thing they are worried about the drainage, and most of the time they are in a state of panic, which as an engineer and probably as a village, you know that all of this is going to be scrutinized to its extreme level by the county. DuPage County is very difficult to pass anything in the stormwater management, and by the village. So these things are something that leave it to us, or not me, of course, in this particular case, I'm in a different position, but leave it to the engineers, and they will resolve it to its best. And this is not something that we can resolve, as you mentioned, in this board at all.
And also the common areas. What was
the common area?
Conceptually, what was that going to be?
And
How would that be resolved in no association?
Yeah, the idea, I think, common area goes back that I actually left it unanswered about the association. Maybe if this is really the solution to that, it's solution to maintenance of these things, let it be. If the majority of the people here think that this is the best thing, it really, from the developer point of view, it doesn't make a lot of difference this way or that way. Somebody has to maintain it, and if it has to be association, I'm open to that. I mean, there is nothing.
All right. I think I'm going to jump in here for a minute. Okay. So the development before us is 5 houses on 50,000 square feet of property. And the minimum lot size is 7,500 square feet. The property, according to your dimension plan, is wide enough to get 3 zoning lots of record with their front yard facing Monterey. You could get 3 50-foot lots. Actually, the middle lot would be 54 feet, which would meet our minimum requirements. Okay, so you can build 3 houses on this property as long as you meet the setbacks without even coming here. Correct?
Yes.
Right. You don't. So if you go away and don't rethink this plan, you could just submit building permit drawings.
Exactly.
For 3 houses through the village board.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's one route. I think if you take that route, we don't have the chance to make any comments to you. So I want to relay the comment that I would agree we wouldn't want 3 exact same houses. Even if the plans are similar, we'd want you to, as an architect, look at the character of the neighborhood, look at the materials used, some of the scale references, and then come back with solutions that fit that. That character. Okay.
And I designed houses in the village, and I'm aware of.
Okay. So that's how we would want you to see, and you would do, again, those same 3 houses that you would submit as a building permit, each house would have to have its own drainage plan, obviously, that's going to get vetted in the same way. It's not as rigorous,
yes,
though. It's not as rigorous.
Yes.
Right, okay. So let's go back to what's on the table here. I think the biggest disconnect between our first meeting and this meeting is aesthetics, and the idea of this was going to feel, I think, more like a community, but it was going to tie into the architecture and the style of that area and the scale. I don't think that the massing, the actual housing massing shapes, if you will, is out of line with that or out of scale with that. I live in a story-and-a-half bungalow and my ridge line's at 28 feet. He's around 30 feet. So I don't think that that's out of the ordinary in terms of size. It really comes down to detailing, fenestration, window proportions, all those things. And what you've shown us, the word cookie cutter is very appropriate, and kind of standard production housing is very appropriate. I wasn't expecting that to come back this way. And I think that's what village staff is meaning when they're saying, we 3 houses could be just the same as this. So we're not getting any benefit. The community isn't getting a benefit, the village isn't getting a benefit. I think that can be solved. I'm going to say that I think you can, architecturally, you can have what would be called the back of the house face Monterey, as long as the fenestration, the architecture, the detailing is attractive and goes along with the fronts of the other houses. Right now, the elevations we're seeing, it looks like it's vinyl siding down to the ground and a couple of windows plopped in there. So you really have to think those through carefully as if they were fronts. So we like to say to our other retail and commercial clients, we want a 4-sided building. We want design on all 4 sides. There's not a side where you kind of don't think about it and don't think about it as being something that the neighbors are going to look at. So that would be the other thing. Given the tight proximity here on some of these concerns about where's people's ladders going to go, where are the condensers going to go for the air conditioners, all those things are going to be very, very important to maintaining the attractiveness of it. And it's why I think we keep talking about a neighborhood association, because then perhaps you could start to group some of those common service elements, hide them, etc. Your rendering starts to suggest some brick walls out in this cul-de-sac area. I think we anticipated seeing a design of gardens and maybe walls like that help to shield some of these more utilitarian functions, create exterior interesting spaces, landscapes, so that it really was an interesting community. And I understand if everything that I'm saying is ringing dollar signs in your head and you're going to go, I can't make that work. But for me to feel comfortable with voting on this density, it's going to really have to step up. And we're going to really want you to consider, what these houses are going to look like. And we would want to see all that information come before us so we can feel comfortable that, that's going to give the quality level and the feeling, and you've solved up sort of all these problems. So I know I'm expanding on what everybody else said, but I wanted you to understand that it's got to be an all-integrated design, landscaping, sidewalks, any other kind of common element, walls, the fenestration of the houses. At the same time, the houses need to be compatible with each other, but I agree with the neighbors. They don't all have to look exactly alike. I think the house in the middle with the 2 garages does look like a duplex unit. I think you were trying to give us a front door that you saw when you came into that street instead of a garage door. I appreciate that design thought, but it maybe didn't achieve the goal that you were looking for. So those are my kind of comments. In terms of the density, though, in the lot area that you have, you're there. You've got 50,000 square feet and you're asking for 5 houses. So I don't feel like we have too much density. It's just not, the design isn't there yet. For me, it's just not developed enough, and it's not giving back to your neighbors enough aesthetics to make it so that it's not just 3 houses fronting the street. So that's really what my comments are, and I also wanted, like I said, the audience to know that if he goes down the path, he discontinues this, 3 houses can get built. There's no other, they just need to get permitted, so they need to follow all of our building permit requirements, engineering requirements. So,
which offers no opportunity for us or the community to have any input into aesthetics.
Right.
They can build 3 cookie cutter houses.
But I hear the petitioner. Right.
I hope he wouldn't. But
yeah. Right. And I think I was going to say, I think I'm hearing the petitioner saying that he's listening to you, and he really wants to fit in, and whatever he does wants to fit into the community.
I really do. This is my first development of my own. I've always worked for the others to do these things, and I always came as a consultant and a person who enforced the code and everything else in there. Coming and feeling that people, feeling the feeling of the people against you. It's somewhere that I have not been there. So, and I don't want to be there either. So that's my.
I think we have one more question here.
I had a quick question for staff, Patrick. I know when we talked about this initially in the review, there was some back and forth about whether the cul-de-sac being dedicated or being part of the property was better for the village and where the village fell on that. Is there any formal opinion the village has on whether they would see it as rather see it dedicated or rather see it maintained by the property owner?
The last discussions that I had with our Public Works Department was that they would like to see it dedicated.
Okay. And I imagine the reason of that is, though, there may be cost down the road to the village, but when you give it over to a homeowners association, if they don't want to maintain it, you have to try to force them to maintain it, maybe potentially even through the courts, as opposed to having a road crew go out and take care of it, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Because I know we've run in, there's a couple of other roads that are quasi-public driveways, like the one on the condo development. They technically own it, homeowners association, they share it with the mall, nobody wants to maintain it.
Yeah. No, that's,
Yeah.
North Avenue Townhomes, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so it's starting to get late. I think we've had a lot of discussion and a lot of good comments, and I think...
I would like to just add one more thing.
Sure.
One, I get the whole water issue. My house is right in the middle of the block between, it's on Michigan, between Madison and Washington. It was awesome. It was in the middle of the block. I had a storm drain put in the backyard because it took on that much water. My basement flooded 3 times. The 3rd time I lost the water heater in the furnace, and then I had to just do the mitigation and just sink a lot of money I didn't have into keeping the water out of my basement. So I get it. I get your concerns. I've lived it. The other thing too is you guys are here in front of us today, and a lot of comments about the charm and character of the neighborhood. And and you guys are reacting to it, and you're reacting to this development, and I think that's great. But we have this, and Carol's here. Carol, the Historical Preservation Commission, and what this does. And I apologize, Robin. You're always like, this is the part of the meeting you love the most. You're like, we're just hassler going with this. But the Historical Preservation Commission advises the President and Board of Trustees on matters relating to the preservation of areas, places, sites, buildings, structures, and other objects having a special historical, community, or aesthetic interest, value, or significance to the village. Now, I don't think we have, you kind of noted and I've seen the signs up, that there is a historical neighborhood. I've seen the signs up, but I don't think it's protected. It's not protected. And if it were protected, then
I'd be up there saving the house.
well, yeah, correct. If it were protected, then and some towns do this.
Can we? So, why don't you? I'm going to need you to be sworn in, please, because I don't think you stood up and got sworn in.
Yeah.
So let's do that first.
Yes.
Thank you. And I need you to state your name and address for the record.
No, I'm just stating for the commission, so I'll just say I'm Carol Marcus. I chair the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm just here tonight to listen. I just want to tell you the history of the lot. The history of the lot was one of the home is not plaqued, the neighborhood is not on any particular designated neighborhood, but that was one of the last remaining large sites of the original platting of Villa Park, and if Ron knew that they're going to knock the house down, he would just be, really upset. But I have no comments on it.
you know, I think development is good for the village. Not every house can be saved. And I really don't think this fits in the neighborhood as it's presented right now. That's my personal opinion. Maybe I should have said I live at 221 South Summit Avenue and not make this a commission comment. It's just my own personal thing. I've seen, my cousin lives in Oswego in a new development, and it's all cul-de-sacs. I get lost every time I go out there. I go there once a year for Christmas, and I can't find myself in and out of those things. Worried about the parking. There's a lot of parking on Monterey. I have friends that live on Monterey. I go down Monterey a lot, and there's parked cars out there too. And if parked cars are in front of the driveway there, that big street, it might be a problem backing in and out. So that's going beyond the historic preservation comment on it. But we do like the character of unique houses, and this concept, although it's good, might be good in a different part of Villa Park that's not developed. I don't think it's fitting for the neighborhood. Thank you.
So I guess my point being is that if we're reactive to this, and that if there are properties that you think are significant and you'd like to see protected, get involved. Historic preservation, get involved with the board. You know, get this whole group together and go to the board. Say, look, you know, we want this area protected. You know, we want this under review by the Historic Preservation Committee. Other towns do it. There's no reason why we can't. So I just want to throw that out there. I appreciate everyone showing up tonight. I love it when the public gets involved. It's awesome. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I think what we talked about before was, after we got through questions and some comments, obviously, from commissioners, that we would talk about continuing this hearing to a date certain. And I think my question is, a month, 2 months?
We can push it in for 1 month. We can push it for 1 month.
If we, just so you know, if we continue it to a date certain of a month and you're not ready, we can always continue it again. If we continue it to a date,
then certainly
to some date in the future that's not specific, then we have to renotice it.
This project has a special place in my office. I can stop all the other works and work on this one. That's what I would do probably. But before I do that, before I give this promise, I just wanted to get a tally of all the people sitting here. At least, do you want to continue this way or not?
What the public has to say. If you want to poll your neighbors outside of the hearing, certainly I encourage you to get as much input as you can from your neighbors. But and I guess I'm remiss on explaining this at the beginning when I was explaining this hearing procedure. This is really a quasi-judicial procedure here that we are here tonight. That's why we have a court reporter. That's why we're trying to be careful to make sure everybody's heard, everybody gets their chance to speak, and there's an orderly manner in which this meeting is conducted, and it's recorded. Really, I probably should have stopped you from clapping every time, because that's not appropriate in a quasi-judicial process. Because the idea here is the petitioner has a right to speak and be heard, as do you, and has a right not to be interrupted, as do you. So, anyway, so I want to make sure that we're at a place where if we continue, the public hearing is not closed. If it comes back again, you will have opportunity to come speak in regards to the new information the petitioner will be providing. I think for tonight, we've kind of hit a place where the petitioner is saying he's listening to you, he wants to have an opportunity to go back and look at things. And I think we want to give him adequate time to do that and to get back to us. I think, you know, there's been a lot of comments made. So I guess I'm interested in what the commission thinks about continuing to a date certain. I think there's some question about what is the next regular meeting, truly a month away.
No, it's going to be 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, it's August 10th.
August 10th.
Okay. So, which means you would have to submit information By when, Mr. Grew?
If it's August 10th, I would really need to have it by August 1st.
So in light of that information, yeah, you can't do it. So let's go to the September
September 14th.
14th, if you're in agreement.
That's fine. That's
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Yeah, if
And
I need to do something right.
Thank you,
I
yeah.
cannot just go.
Correct, that's what we want. We want something that that reflects that you've listened. So what's consensus on the commission about continuing to a date certain of September 14th?
That would work for me, I think.
I'm in favor.
Well, I first want to get Mr. Gatto.
I'm in favor.
Okay. So then, I think we'll have a motion.
I want to make one more comment before we
Okay.
continue. Just real quick, someone had a petition that they said was circulated in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
If they want that to be part of the record, I would make sure that staff gets that so that it could. Yeah, I mean, you'll have to just give it to them today, but make sure staff gets it so that it can get into our packet that comes to us for the next meeting, and then it will be part of the record.
Thank you, good point. And then it can go on to the village board as well, so thank you. Okay. All right, so a motion for continuing, because it sounds like we have consensus on the commission members to do so.
I would like to make a motion to continue petition PZ 170015 to a date certain of September 14th, 2017.
I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second
I have a second. Questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none. Hassler?
Yes.
Bello?
Yes.
Orlowski?
Yes.
Romano?
Yes.
Gatto?
Yes.
Jarrett?
Yes.
I too vote yes. So we're continued to that date certain. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not, our commission is not done for this evening, so if you want to leave, do so as quietly as possible. We have another hearing that we need to address.
I do have one comment that they may want to hear.
Okay, go ahead, please.
And that is, even though we don't have we do have an anti-monotony provision in our ordinance, but it's in the subdivision regulations, not the zoning ordinance. The good thing here is the developer would have to go through a subdivision, because as the lots currently exist,
Thank you.
he really doesn't have 3 lots that front on Monterey. He really only has 1. So he'd have to subdivide. But as part of the subdivision, there is an anti-monotony standard that must be met with the construction of those homes.
Thank you for that clarification. I think that's helpful for the neighbors to hear. Okay. So we're going to, we've got another hearing for this evening. Commission members, do you want a break or do you want to, okay. We're going to have a break.
Request us to continue it.
Yeah, I know, but I just got a signal to continue. So, excuse me, I just got a request to have a small break here. So, can we get back here at 5 till? Can we do that, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take a short break and we'll be back here at 5 till. We're back. So if you have conversations that aren't part of a hearing that we're going to talk about, please take them outside. Thank you. Okay. So we are going to open petition PZ 17-0016, special use for a commercial planned unit development and subdivision into 2 lots at 555 East North Avenue. The petitioner is Richard McMahon. Is there someone representing the petitioner here this evening? No, there is not. Director Grill.
After submittal of the petition and publication, the petitioner had an issue with attendance at the meeting and actually wished it to be continued. I informed him that unfortunately we had already posted it, so we had to open the public hearing, but we'll continue it, and told him that it wouldn't be any problem.
So, sounds like this is a request of the petitioner to continue. So, from the commission, do we have a motion?
Is date certain of next month?
Yeah,
good.
August 10th,
Okay.
yes.
All right, I would like to make a motion to continue petition PZ 170016 to a date certain of August 10th, 2017.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second on that motion. Any questions or comments? Vote by roll call. Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Bello? Yes. Orlowski?
Yes.
Romano?
Yes.
Jarrett?
Yes.
Gatto?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Okay. Our next agenda item, that finishes our petitions for this evening. So, upcoming public hearings, I guess we have one. According to the agenda, I'll let Director Grill maybe brief us on that.
It's just the one that we just continued.
Okay.
So
that's the only one that we have upcoming.
and there won't be any additional ones.
Besides the one in September, we just continued as well. Okay.
Correct.
Briefing on village board actions, related matters.
Well, what I will tell you as part of the meeting on August 10th, we will get a presentation on our comprehensive zoning update.
Excellent.
So, you'll see a full draft by then. It'll be presented that evening. And then we'll establish some dates for some public commentary.
Great. All right. Any commissioner comments?
I do, I guess. I sit here, I hate talking down the road there, I can't see everybody. This is my last meeting. I don't know if you guys know this or not. I'm not gonna be around anymore. I think I've worn out my welcome.
After tonight.
You finally figured it out.
I moved this town.
Do you want to do this while the court reporter is typing, or do we want to be done with the public?
We can be done with the public. What I feel is important, but maybe it's not that important.
Okay. So, well, and I think we want to recognize the service that you've given to us.
For good or for bad?
No, for good. We really appreciate it, the time that you spent on our commission. So
yeah,
thank
it's
you.
Been great. I've appreciated my opportunity here. I got involved right away. I ran for trustee twice. Tried to underspend Dave Heglin. That was kind of fun. On campaign. Never lost a campaign to Al Boltice. I'll let the record show. I never ran against him, but that doesn't change the fact I never lost.
Okay.
It's just been great. You guys have been very welcoming. I appreciate the camaraderie and friendship, and it's been great. There's other things I'd like to do. I just, I signed my son up for baseball, and there's a button on there, volunteer opportunities. I'm like, are you kidding me? And I'm hitting that. So I just spread myself too thin.
Yeah.
And I think this town is
in
great.
Villa Park?
I think, huh?
You staying in Villa Park?
Oh, you gonna sell me your house?
Yep.
So we'll miss you attending in your Boy Scout
uniform.
uniform.
I'll be around. I think this town needs a park district and not a Parks and Recs department. I think there should be a right-hand turn on Villa Avenue at Roosevelt Road. I think a lot of things. Right. So I'm not going away. All right. But again, guys, thank you for everything. It's been a pleasure. Patrick, Your professionalism and everything over the years has been great. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you so much.
So I'll be around, I'm sure. I'll be at a few of these meetings. For sure. I always have something to say, don't I?
Yes.
Again, thank you for everything, guys.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks.
We'll miss
Thanks.
you.
Yes, you will be missed. Thank you.
We'll be out of here at 8 o'clock. We won't know what to do with ourselves.
All right. So, any other commissioner comments? Consensus to adjourn? All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.